I have been using two different heart rate monitors over the past few weeks. I have been using the Whoop 5.0 and the Polar H10 chest strap. A few months ago, I have tested the accuracy of Whoop 4.0, and let me tell you the conclusion. It wasn't accurate at all. The video is in the channel if you want to see it. But what about Whoop 5.0? The company claimed that the Whoop 5.0 is way more accurate than the last generation, and it can keep up with the high standards. So today we are going to compare the Whoop 5.0 with the Polar H10 strap to see if it's actually better than the last generation. The first test we did was running, and there is a reason for that. Running is a kind of gold standard when it comes to the heart rate testing. You get a steady movement, full body rhythm, and a predictable cardiovascular response. So if the Whoop struggle here, especially after what happened to the 4.0, it's going to be a big red flag. So I wanted to track and I ran for 25 minutes. And through the run, there was some pros and cons using two devices that I will talk about that later. But in that 25 minutes, the average heart rate in Whoop was 157 and on Polar was 159, which is quite accurate, even though the Whoop had a lot of fluctuation compared to the Polar, which was a bit steady throughout the whole running. But the average heart rate was quite accurate in both sides, and also the max heart rate had just 1 beats per minute difference, which is really good. But Whoop shows that I burned 334 calories in that 25 minutes, but Polar showed 432. It's a huge difference between the Whoop and Polar when it comes to calorie burns. I will talk about the calorie burn at the end of the video, because in all the tests that we have done, there was a huge gap between Polar and Whoop. So we will not talk about that anymore in other tests, and we will talk about that at the end of the video. Let's talk about pros and cons. With Polar H10 strap, you have to go through the app and start the activity. But Whoop has auto detection, which is really good. It happens for me a few times that I start my activity, I had my Polar strap on, but I forgot to go to the app and start the activity. And halfway through the session, I remembered and it was really late. But with the Whoop, it has auto detection, which is quite accurate. And even if it's not detecting your activity, after your exercise, you can go back and add the activity, because the Whoop is going to measure your heart rate all the time, so it can calculate your strain even after exercise. Unfortunately, both devices, they don't have GPS, so you have to rely on your phone for GPS or your smartwatch. But the good thing is that both devices felt really comfortable throughout the session. Whoop was really nice, I barely noticed it, really comfortable. And also the Whoop was really good too. I felt it a few times that I need a little adjustment, but it was really good and comfortable. And the things that I noticed throughout the running, that Whoop had lots of rapid changes compared to the Polar, which was really steady and it didn't have too much rapid movement, which is okay. But having rapid changes, for example, you're pushing yourself too much and you will see that your heart rate is dropping, is not a good thing. But in conclusion, both of them, they were really good, and Whoop was really accurate, and it surprised me. By the way, if you want to buy the Polar strap or you want to try the Whoop, there is a link in description. Also for the Whoop, you will get the Whoop device for free, and you can try the Whoop 1 month for free if you use the link below. So the next one was cycling. Unlike running, cycling involves very little arm movements. Your legs are working hard, but your arms are mostly still. That's a challenge for wrist sensors like Whoop. I did an outdoor cycling session, which was really nice. And I used the iPhone GPS because, again, these two devices, they don't have GPS. The Whoop measured my average heart rate around 131 beats per minute, and Polar measured 135. And max heart rate was nearly identical in both of them. But there was a few moments that the Whoop dropped like 10 to 20 beats per minute suddenly, and it took like 10 seconds to catch up and come back up again. But with Polar, it was steady, there was no drop in heart rate. So again, Whoop showed a lot of fluctuation, but the end result was quite similar between both devices. Let's talk about pros and cons. Whoop recovered really fast after those drops. it could be a good thing and bad thing. The bad thing is that it has that fluctuation, but the good thing is that it can recover really fast, so you're not going to lose a lot of data. Again, the calorie burn between both devices were really off. We will talk about that later in the video. Both devices were really comfortable when I was cycling. But what I found really interesting is that the live activity features of the Whoop. The Whoop app has this live activity in iPhone at least, that you can see your heart rate live and also which zone are you in. But unfortunately, Polar app doesn't have this live activity. So when you want to check your Polar heart rate throughout the cycling, you have to open your phone, you have to go to the app and see the heart rate. But with the Whoop, there is a live activity. You can see your heart rate straight from your screen. But Polar has one great feature that Whoop doesn't have it. I will talk about that in the next test. So for the cycling, both devices were comfortable, they were quite accurate, and Whoop did a really good job. The third test was elliptical. Elliptical is a full body low impact cardio movement where arms and legs work in sync. It's smoother than running or cycling, so I was curious how the sensors would behave. So I did the elliptical in the gym, and average heart rate on Polar was 149 and Whoop 150, which is pretty good. Also, max heart rate had just 1 beats per minute different, which is still really good for Whoop. That's a huge improvement for Whoop 5.0 compared to the 4.0, which wasn't accurate at all. But let's talk about pros and cons. The pro that I told you about Polar that I'm gonna talk about in this test is about the ANT Plus technology. Polar has this technology, which means that whenever you go to gym or any cardio machine, the Polar is going to detect the machine automatically, and you will see your heart rate on machine, which is amazing because you can see your heart rate live, you can go faster, you can go slower, and you can see your heart rate all the time. But unfortunately, Whoop doesn't have this technology. So whenever you want to check your heart rate with the Whoop, either you have to tap on the screen or you have to go to your app to see your heart rate. Honestly speaking, this feature of Polar is amazing. I use it every single time. Whenever I want to do cardio, I use my Polar because I want to make sure that my heart rate is in the right zone that I want to train. Again, Whoop had lots of fluctuation, but at the end, it was backing up really fast and everything was fine. What I felt through elliptical that the Polar was a bit loose after like 10 minutes of doing it, so I had to tighten it up. But after that, it was fine. There was no problem with the Polar as well. So in terms of elliptical, both of them, they were really accurate, but I like Polar when it comes to the cardio machines because you can see your heart rate live and it's easier to see it there instead of tapping on the phone and see where you are. But the hardest test for Whoop was strength training. And most of the trackers, they have problem when it comes to strength training because we have a static hold, we have a lot of different movement that sometimes devices like Whoop cannot detect it properly. So the Whoop gave me the average heart rate of 100 and Polar gave me 105. And the max heart rate was kind of identical, so there was no problem with that. But throughout the workout, the Whoop was showing constantly lower heart rate compared to the Polar, which wasn't interesting. And whenever I was checking the Polar and the Whoop was like 5 to 6 beats per minute behind, and it didn't catch up really fast, but it was okay-ish. So let's talk about pros and cons. As I said, Whoop had problem, especially during the rest and pauses between sets. Polar was really good and consistent throughout the workout, but it's sometimes difficult when you want to do exercises that your chest is against the pad because you have the Polar there, so it's a bit uncomfortable, or you have your chest against a bench, so it gets a bit uncomfortable in that exercises, but in general it was comfortable. I talked about the auto detection in the exercises. Whoop has a struggle when it comes to strength training because your heart rate is not going really high really fast, so it's not going to detect it really fast. But at the end of the day, it's really good. Again, I talked about this in my Whoop video as well. The way that you have to add your weights and repetition and exercises in the Whoop, it's really frustrating. It takes a lot of time and they have to change it, but still you can add that, which is really good. Unfortunately, in Polar app, you cannot do it. You cannot add any exercises or any weight that you have done before. So here Whoop I think is better when it comes to measuring what you have done, but the accuracy wise Polar is still better when it comes to strength training. But if I want to choose a winner, definitely I'm going to choose Whoop. And the last one is paddle test. This test was the most dynamic, quick sprints, stops, changes of direction, and swinging movements. Basically everything, perfect for testing the comfort and tracking. The average heart rate for the Whoop was 140 and Polar 139, which was amazing. I wasn't expecting that Whoop can detect the heart rate that good. The max heart rate had 4 beats per minute different, which was okay. Let's talk about pros and cons. Whoop was really tight, comfortable throughout the whole session and barely noticed it. But Polar felt really uncomfortable after like 20-30 minutes. First 10-20 minutes was really good, but after that it started losing and I had to adjust it after each like rally, which was a bit uncomfortable. Just to let you know, before any exercises I tighten my Whoop and Polar to make sure they can measure it accurately. But with the Polar, especially after 20-30 minutes of playing paddle, it's start getting loose and I had to adjust it every rally, which was really frustrating. Both were really accurate, but if I want to choose one when it comes to paddle, definitely I'm going to choose Whoop because it was really comfortable, easy to use, and I barely noticed it throughout the session. And as you can see, the accuracy is really good too. So for the sports that you have a lot of movement and a lot of activity, still Whoop measured really good. I'm really happy about that. They come a long way. So let's talk about the calorie burn that I told you I will explain at the end of the video. So you may have noticed that the Whoop always shows fewer calorie burn. Polar shows a lot of calorie burn throughout the session. And I think Apple Watch is somewhere in the middle. So the reason behind that is Polar H10 is measuring your calorie just with your heart rate. It's going to use your heart rate and then it's going to put it in the formula that you have your age, your weight, everything, and it's going to calculate your calorie burn. It doesn't matter if you move too much or not. It's just going to choose your heart rate. So if you have lower rate of recovery in your heart rate, still you will be burning a lot of calories. But Whoop is going to measure your heart rate, your movement, and your strain, and it will calculate with a different formula. That's why with the Whoop you will get a lower rate of calorie burn. So when it comes to calorie burn, I'm not going to trust any of these devices, not Apple Watch, not Whoop, and not Polar, because it's different between every person. But I trust more the devices that I can wear it and calibrate it in a longer period, which is the smartwatches and Whoop compared to the Polar. So in conclusion, Whoop really surprised me. Out of 5 tests, just aside from strength tests, the rest it was really good. I'm really happy about that. And if I want to choose a device that use it while I'm training, I'm going to use Whoop because of its comfort and the accuracy. Please remember, if you want to try the Whoop or Polar, there is a link in description. You can get a free Whoop and you can try the Whoop 1 month for free if you use the link in description. Please let me know in the comment which sport is the hardest to detect the heart rate for these devices. Thank you for watching and I will catch you in the next time.